Good morning, everyone. So who consciously or subconsciously lightened up or even maybe skipped their breakfast this morning because they knew they were coming to Google today? And at Google, you get fed well. Yeah, quite a few people. Okay, so did I. See, Google understood this from the beginning. It's about the experience. It's not just about the content. It's about being able to connect and share ideas in venues like this with the great food that's coming up. And they got it right from the beginning because they said, focus on the user and the rest will follow. That's what it's about. So why did we come to this point? Where earlier this year, a message told by the COO of AdBlock Plus, supported by the ERB, said we screwed up. We lost track of user experience. Because of this. The best minds of our generation are trying to figure out how to get people to click more ads. It's the Googles, it's the Facebooks, but it's also us as a community. And this is a responsibility that we have to try and fix this. Because in a mobile environment, the only ads people want to see are the ads they would miss if they were not there. See, mobile accelerated all of this. Who knows who this is? Don Draper from Mad Men. You see, in the 50s and 60s, when it went from radio to television in the TV industrial complex, it was unheard of that people blocked your ads. They couldn't. You see, radio and TV were invented by advertisers and marketers. Bring people in for the content, deliver a message. You had control. You had people's attention. And now we're in the biggest mass-made communication medium ever known to man, the internet. Wasn't invented by advertisers and marketers. We don't have control. Attention is fragmented and people are highly impatient and they're empowered because now they have ad blockers. So what's Google doing? They're building an ad blocker by default into Chrome because they know that the consumer is going to get hold of an ad blocker if they want it. It may as well come from Google. So last year, Mary Meeker at the State of the Internet report showed this slide, over 600 million ad blockers installed worldwide on mobile. The green line is mobile, the red line is desktop. Look at the slopes. This isn't about to stop. And that's because people are annoyed. The experience is not what it should be. And so they block ads. But the consumer, which is us, already know the solution isn't blocking ads because a lot of the wonderful content they come on the internet to enjoy is ad supported. It's about trying to block the bad ads. So it's about us trying to figure out how to create more meaningful connections online, how to deliver more meaningful advertising that actually drives value for the consumer. It's about developing new habits. It's about transitioning from the old into the new, and that takes effort. And sometimes to adopt the new, you need to let go of the old. And right now, for a business, it's about transforming through this little screen that we all have in our pocket. Because that's where the consumer is. That's where their attention is being spent. And if you're not there and your consumer is transitioning to mobile, then you're going to be made irrelevant in time. Everyone knows what AI is. Who knows what IA is? Intelligent assistants. Karen talked about it. Intelligent assistants. These are going to be our assistants, the things we build relationships with that help us connect to all the wonderful things that digital has to offer. So it comes down to this. We're trying now to build our relationships through technology, through this thing called the internet. It's always been about relationships. Business has always been about relationships. We've always been about relationships. Our bodies are about relationships, things interacting with each other. The cosmos is about relationships. And now we're trying to do it through this thing called the internet, a technology. And the only way to measure relationships in a digital age is through the data, because then you can understand, is there love, is there hate, is there trust? Are people doing the things they need to be doing? Are people doing the things my business needs them to be doing so that I can survive? And we all love our screens. We love them. We're almost addicted to them. Look at our kids. They love those screens. They love anything digitized. It's wonderful. And we keep connecting with them, and our customer journey keeps getting more and more complex with more and more touch points. But it's about to get a whole lot more complicated. Karen hinted to it. It's this enrichment of our environments with all these digital touch points. Everything's becoming smartified. And this is brands stepping in, trying to facilitate the mobility of human experience, trying to add value to our lives with all the wonderful, empowering things technology has. And all these things are going to be built into our homes and our devices, and they're all going to have smart virtual assistants in them, and we're going to be able to speak to them. Screens are going to disappear where the context doesn't need a screen. And this is going to enrich how we build relationships. If we can measure these signals, we can understand what relationships people are in with brands, with devices, amongst each other. It's about technology coming into our lives, and technology grows exponentially. On the one side, you've got innovation. That's companies building devices, connecting them to the internet, and we call this the Internet of Things. But on the other side, it's also about adaptation, because we as human beings are quite linear in our thinking. And where the disconnect, where the pain is that technology just grows exponentially, because it can. It's binary. And we have to adapt to it as businesses, but also as consumers. We're only in the beginning of this thing. It's just the plumbing phase. We're trying to connect all these things up together. They don't work very well. But slowly but surely, we're seeing the capabilities, and slowly but surely, we're adapting the things that work. Conversational commerce is coming. The way it used to be, a conversation. We're conversational creatures. We like to converse. Technology's been quite dumb up to now, but with virtual assistants that start to understand voice and understand the relationships we have, they're going to be able to converse with us and help us engage with brands, with information, with other devices. You see, my daughter, she's 5. She can't write, she can't spell, but she can sure speak. So when she's playing Pokemon Go, she closes the app, she says, "Okay, Google, wie ist der stärkste Pokemon?" And Google gives her the answer. It's an experience. She doesn't read, but she goes to the images and she goes to the videos. You see, she's not going to have to change her behavior. She's already speaking to these things. We have to change our behavior, and that's much harder. They all have a name. Google hasn't given its assistant a name. It's the Google Assistant, because they know we're in a relationship with Google already. We don't need more relationships. We've got enough relationships in our lives, especially with things like Facebook, which connect us to everybody we want to be connected with. There's a limit to the amount of meaningful relationships we can have, so Google understands that. It's Google you have the relationship with. These assistants are going to be driven by bots. Messenger is becoming a new platform where bots are going to be able to facilitate tasks, from ordering pizza to ordering an Uber to transferring money to paying your rent. So do you have as a brand a strategy on how to build on top of Messenger like they're doing in China? Have a look at what WeChat's doing. It's pretty amazing. You can't even pay in some stores now without WeChat. So it's becoming a problem for tourists that don't have a WeChat account. They don't take credit card or cash anymore. You pay with WeChat. So last year I developed this model. It's called Meaningful Connections. It's how to build relationships sustainably in a digital ecosystem. On the one side, you have the platforms. They're responsible for the security. The World Wide Web, the linked devices that generate data. We call it IoT because there's a lot of devices. We call it big data because there's a lot of data. On the other side, and how these brands at the bottom are building relationships, is that they're doing it through understanding who they're dealing with, understanding the consumer. That's personalization. Building experiences. Think of Google Maps. It's an experience to get you from A to B as efficiently and cheaply as possible, and Google takes you on that journey. Empowerment. Technology is all empowering. Technology is a tool that empowers us. It saves us time. Most of these apps are saving time. Driving value, whether that be monetary value or time value. Time is our greatest asset. It's limit. We never get more of it. And ultimately, it needs to help people live happier, healthier, more productive lives. That's what makes this thing sustainable. That's how we come back to it, and that's how we share it and evangelize the brands that are able to fulfill this circle. Meaningful connections. It's how to build relationships in a digital age. Great. So now what? What can you do? What are the steps that we can take today, tomorrow, in order to start to build this evangelized world? So there are 3 key challenges, very relevant for today. One of them is cross-device. Most people start exploring on mobile, but they eventually convert somewhere else. 65% of them, actually. Online to offline. So for retailers, I think we have a retailer. It's about connecting the offline to offline. It's about, so what's the promise of this digital? How can I use these digital channels in order to get more people buying in my store? And how can I even meet them in their homes? So it goes much more, and then you've got an Internet of Things approach. But 93% of retail sales still happen in stores. People still like to go and buy in stores. They like to be able to feel and touch the things they're buying. Attribution and bidding. So 65% of marketers still use a last click attribution model. So there's a promise and there's a reality. On the one side, cross-device retargeting sounds great, following the customer through that journey, even with an IoT strategy behind it, and pulling them in, slowly adjusting and influencing their behavior so that they end up buying from me. But in reality, it doesn't work across the whole ecosystem. It works great in a Google ecosystem, it works great in a Facebook ecosystem, but as soon as a consumer leaves that ecosystem, we've lost them, we can't track them anymore. So then it requires a very big data approach to build a DMP, bring everything back, connect all the dots, apply AI so that you've got real time to be able to attribute properly. We're not there yet. MRAID 3.0. So we're at 2.0 now. MRAID is a new standard to be able to measure more accurately in browser, in app, so that we've got measurements that are more accurate. We're not there yet, but it's a promise for 2018. It's an ERB approved standard. CTR, so we need to look behind the click. What's the intent behind the click? Because on a mobile device, clicks are elusive. What's actually causing people to click? Is it a mistake? Is it something they actually wanted to do? Are you delivering on the promise that you suggested in the ad? Conversions, trying to measure conversions on mobile phone drives you to a last click attribution model. How can we get away from that so that we can attribute value early on in the customer journey that helps the user gain value so that we build relationships and pull them in? Probably the most actionable slide for you today. What should we measure? So the top two, they're the MRAID. MRAID's going to solve a lot of these things, from engagement to viewability. Engagement, think past the click. Think about how people are engaging with the screen, how they're pinching, how they're scrolling, how they're swiping. So there are ad formats now like cubes and carousels you can use to measure the engagement of people. Viewability, visual engagement. It'd be great to see how visual, how the engagement, how people are actually interacting with the ad with their eyes, because we're very visual creatures. These screens, we look at them. Not there yet, big topic of this year. MRAID's hopefully going to solve a lot of that in browser, in app. Location, we're very mobile creatures. We take our phones with us. How can we use mobility and location in order to improve our mobile strategies? Think of geo audiences. Think of geofences. Trying to apply your budgets in much more specific ways to drive meaning in those locations for the users that need them in those times and those areas. And the golden one, I think the golden thing for this, at least the next 3 years, they say by 2020, 70% of content will be consumed via video. We're seeing that already a lot on social and YouTube. So use video to measure engagement. How interested is a user? How far down the video did they get? Whether it's an ad or whether it's content, ideally you don't see the difference. And then you can sequentially retarget them with the next message. Pull them into the relationship. So understand the engagement within video. A successful measurement and optimization engine requires 3 key components: the right people, the right process, the right technique. Under people, you're thinking about a learning mindset, a data-first mindset, a testing mindset, people with the right skills, but also people that can work efficiently together. Under process, you're looking at more of an experimentally enabled process. Test, validate, learn, iterate, and do that in a cost-effective way. Very challenging, but if you can get it right, then that's how you grow. That's how the Ubers and the Airbnbs and the Googles and the Facebooks, that's how they manage to grow so quickly. They have an efficient process in place in order to test instead of assume. Technology, technique. So technology is abundant. We've got all these wonderful tools, but implement a tag manager that allows you to leave your IT team med rust, forget the English word, and to be able to be very flexible in the technology that you test, whether it be in browser or in app or in device, and to be able to really quickly swap and change technologies and test and learn. And it has to be an enabling organizational structure, otherwise you hit a brick wall. If your structure is not enabling, then you end up impeding innovation, impeding all these ideas that we have. We sort of know what we need to do. Most of us do know what we need to do, but the environment that we're in doesn't allow us to push forward. Last slide, growing revenue and budgets through validated learning. It's a process you can use. So we start with you. It's about improving customer relationships. And on mobile, it's about speed, it's about defining the right things to measure, and it's about having a CRO approach of experimentation and learning and improving so that you ultimately improve the user experience. And what's going to happen? Google's going to reward you. In organic search, Google's going to reward you. In paid search, you're going to increase multi-screen conversion rate, whether you can measure it or not. Doesn't matter. People are ultimately going to come into the relationship because they've had a great experience. You're going to increase conversion rate if that's what you want to do on mobile. If you're in e-commerce, for example, that's going to increase customer revenue. It's going to increase return on ad spend, and that's going to give you more budget to repeat the process over again. So, the future belongs to those who hear it coming. A quote, famous quote from David Bowie, but it's owned briefly by those who build it. Thank you.